Just reading chapter 15, breaking into Queen Sycorax's dungeon. It's getting very exciting here. Wish and Bodkin and Bumblefoozle tried to sneak down into Sycorax's dungeons in the daytime, but it was impossible. There were way too many people around. We'll have to wait until everyone goes to bed, said Wish. But how are we going to get past the sentry guarding the entrance to my mother's dungeons? I have a great sleeping spell. let me put him to sleep, sweet. I have a great sleeping spell. Let me put him to sleep, squeaked Bumblefoozle. Your spells won't work here, I'm afraid, Bumblefoozle, said Wish. Bodkin looked guilty. I still think this is a terrible idea, he said. But in case you wanted to go through with it, I put a small sleeping draught, oh well done, Bodkin, in the sentry's serving of wild boar stew while I was serving him dinner. Once magic people aren't the only ones who know something about herb work. Oh, Bodkin, thank you, said Wish in delight. Don't thank me, said Bodkin gloomily. My father would be very disappointed in me. I just felt sorry for that poor little squeeze juice, but I should be able to overcome mere personal weakness and do the right thing. I don't know what's come over me. So late that night, Wish and Bodkin crept to the great door, which was the entrance to Queen Sycorax's dungeons. The sentry who was supposed to be guarding it had indeed fallen fast asleep, so they tiptoed past him, unlocked the door with Sycorax's key, and slipped in, soft as shadows, closing the door behind them. As the door shut, Bodkin had a suffocating feeling of panic. Sycorax's dungeons tended to have that effect on people. You stay here, Bumblefoozle, said Wish, or you you can come and warn us if my mother or anybody else comes down after us. Okay, squeaked Bumblefoozle. The smaller hairy fairies were always extremely pleased to be given a role, and she was delighted not to have to go any further. For in the centre of the room they were standing in was the true entrance to the dungeons, a great pit. Oh gosh, I really don't like this kind of thing. Oh gosh, they're going to have to go down there. Look, they're looking down. You see, they've got that platform. Oh dear. We're going to have to go down there, aren't we? He said, pathetically hoping somehow Wish might say no. That's what I'd be saying. Yup, said Wish, climbing onto the platform. Goodbye, whispered Bumblefoozle. Good luck. It was nice knowing you. For big people you were kind of less smelly than most, said Bumblefoozle. Thank you, said Bodkin. Shakily he climbed onto the platform, and Wish untied the rope and gradually let it out, and down, down, down they went, the temperature dropping like a stone, as did Bodkin's heart as the platform lowered deeper, ever deeper into the underground prison. Wish's heart was sinking too, for coming down here felt like not only a betrayal, but also a trespass. Sycorax would have secrets here. A queen must have her secrets, and Sycorax did have secrets. All of Sycorax's secrets were hidden underground. Wish knew that, and she also knew that she really, really did not want to find out what those secrets were. But she had no choice. Down, down, down they went, deeper, ever deeper. When the platform finally came to a soft landing, what seemed like a horribly long time later, they landed in the secret midnight world of the prisons of Queen Sycorax, buried in 100 yards of stone and earth, deep below the warrior Helford. Wish and Bodkin stepped off the platform into a grim little chamber with a steady drip, drip of water coming from the ceiling, and lit by dim and guttering torchlight. There were no fewer than 7 corridors leading off the chamber. Sycorax's dungeons on the site of what in ancient times had once been a mine, so they were haunted not only by the prisoners of the present, but the giant and the dwarf and the human miners of the past. Mine had turned to prison, and the dungeons were now a great spreading maze, like a gigantic long-legged spider's web, with corridors meandering and crossing over each other in trickily confusing fashion, just like the tortuous maze of great tricky Queen Sycorax's mind. Off these corridors were endless little chambers, some with prisoners in them, some with other things. But how were Bodkin and Wish to know which way to go? And what's that noise? Whispered Bodkin. Sycorax's dungeons, as I mentioned earlier, were always filled with noise, and iron music of despair and sweetness all mixed together, for longing does have its own sweetness, and beautiful things can come out of pain. The once magic people imprisoned in those underground regions could no longer perform magic. They could not work their spells. The sprites could not fly. The giants were very slowly shrinking. That's the corridor of the. For in one of the secret cells in the lowest, deepest chamber of all was Sycorax's stone that takes away magic. And they had all been taken there, and they had touched the stone and lost the magic that made them what they were. They were then led back to their cells and kept there until they readjusted and got used to life without their magic. No one had got quite used to it yet, and so the once magic people who were living there filled the dungeons with noise, melancholy noise, angry noise, regretful noise. The sound of the stamping feet of ogres treading in low, sad, slow circles, the howling of werewolves, a song of sprites, singing in high, eerie voices about the bright old days. It was the one thing they could do now. They had lost their wings, their spells, their hope. They had lost their sight, their light, for when the magic went from the sprites, their colours faded. The inner light that burned so bright flickered and died, but they still made noise. They were brought iron spoons and iron dinner plates to eat from, and they clasped the iron in their no longer magic fists or paws, and they tapped out a melancholy beat that drummed through the prison like the ache of a long-lost love. When Wish and Bodkin entered the dungeon, they could hear the song of the sprite called the Once Sprite, who was standing on the shoulder of Crusher the Giant, locked in one of Sycorax's cells. For Wish had been right, Crusher had indeed been captured by Queen Sycorax's warriors, when Dar had left him behind in the clearing of the forest. And here, Crusher the Giant was now, hidden somewhere in Queen Sycorax's dungeons, his eyes closed, thinking great thoughts and hoping against hope that Tsar would come and save him. Meanwhile, on his shoulder, the Once Sprite was singing of one particular bright blue of a summer's day when he flew up and slept on the wing like a swift, allowing the air currents of the atmosphere to be his bed so high that the last thing he saw as he fell asleep was the many islands of Albion spread out below him, the forest reaching from sea to sea. And he sang it so beautifully that all the inhabitants of that underground chamber thought that they could see it too, and joined in the song of lost magic, stamping, beating an iron beat in time, with a giant's great beating heart, as if they were up there in the skies, not down, buried deep, low and forgotten, landlocked forever. Poor Squeezjuice. Was this to be his fate too? Once you've heard the song of lost magic, you never forget it. The confusion of emotions in that song, the despair, the hope, the regret, coupled with the exquisite recreation of the magic world and the powers that the once magic people realised in the moment of losing they had lost, and the way they echoed down the corridors, repeating and mirroring and bouncing off the warren of walls, created a maze of noise and emotions and moral choices at least as disorientating and overwhelming as the physical maze itself. Have we done right? Have we done wrong? Sang the songs. What have we lost? But had we no choice? And this song ran into other songs about the beauty of the wild woods at midnight, where only the eyes of magic could see in the dark the formation of hair ice on the elder tree twigs as the first deep frosts of winter came to the forest, and cyclamen buds, deep velvet and leafless, pushing their way up through the earth, and the discarded autumn leaf cut up from the trees above, too quiet for dull human eyes to see their slow growing, but clear as daylight for the eyes of magic. It wasn't even certain which were the songs of living people and what were the songs of long-dead ghosts of the once magic people imprisoned in these warrens long ago, whose voices had sunk and frozen into the walls, only to be ricocheted back into life again by the slicing bow of present sound waves, as if the spirits of the long-dead goblin and hobelf and she-dwarf miners were still there, picking the sounds out of the walls with their enchanted axes and sending the songs off on their way again, so that they were alive once more in the ears of Bodkin. Ah, yes, it was a strange, haunted place, that underground prison, where magic and iron and past and present and good and evil were being held together in a much more complicated and contradictory manner than you might expect from Sycorax's confident iron hill fort, standing so proudly above them. We have no map, said Bodkin, covering his ears, for the noise was so muddling it made it difficult to think, let alone make any clear choices. He had already explored down one of the corridors and found it split into another 2 directions at the end of it. How are we going to find where she's imprisoned Tsar? We're never going to locate him in a maze as big as this one. A maze can be as effective as locks and keys if you are trying to hide something. Wish and Bodkin walked round the split chamber in despair for a while before the enchanted spoon lighted something down at the bottom of one of the unlit, deep black corridors. A tiny sprinkle of light blinking on and off like a remote star. The spoon tapped Widge gently on the head to get her attention, then tip-tapped his way along the corridor to draw her attention to the little pool of light. Wish held her way after the spoon, with Bodkin saying, "Where are you going?" and following her reluctantly. And when she reached the bright little particle, she could see another patch way in the distance beckoning her like weir light. Sprite dust! Tsar must have sprinkled sprite dust along the way so we could follow him. That's clever, said Wish admiringly. So on they went, feeling their way towards the distant sprinkles of light, deeper and deeper, losing themselves in the twisting corridors of Sycorax's dungeon. Tsar does think on his feet, doesn't he? So he sprinkled a bit like breadcrumbs, you know, in the fairy story. He sprinkled sprite dust so that they can now follow him. They must have known they would come and try and rescue him. We'll find out what happens tomorrow. See you then.